The grand opening of the new corporate headquarters was a day of celebration, a testament to years of hard work and relentless ambition. The building, a towering monolith of glass and steel, stood as a beacon of progress, its cutting-edge design reflecting the company's meteoric rise. As employees and executives alike roamed the pristine halls, admiring the state-of-the-art facilities, no one paid much attention to a small, unmarked door at the end of a long, dimly lit corridor. It was easily overlooked, its plain wooden surface a stark contrast to the sleek, modern architecture surrounding it. The door was not on any of the blueprints, nor had it been mentioned during the countless meetings and walkthroughs leading up to the building's completion. When asked, the construction team dismissed it as a utility access, something insignificant and not worth worrying about. But there was something about the door that caught the attention of Lisa Hayes, the company's head of operations. Lisa was known for her keen eye for detail and her uncompromising approach to efficiency, and this door, with its weathered wood and tarnished brass handle, seemed out of place. One evening, long after most of the staff had gone home, Lisa found herself walking down that dim corridor, her curiosity getting the better of her. The building was eerily quiet, the usual hum of activity replaced by a silence that pressed in on her from all sides. She stopped in front of the door, its presence now, and it she couldn't ignore. Without thinking, she reached out and grasped the handle, the cold metal sending a shiver up her spine. The door creaked open with surprising ease, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. A musty smell wafted up from the depths below, a scent of decay and neglect that made Lisa wrinkle her nose. She hesitated for a moment, then, driven by a mixture of curiosity and a nagging sense of responsibility, she stepped through the doorway and began her descent. Each step echoed in the confined space, the sound growing fainter as she ventured deeper into the unknown. At the bottom of the stairs, Lisa found herself in a small, windowless room illuminated by a single, flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The room was empty except for an old wooden table in the center, upon which lay a thick, dusty ledger. Lisa approached the table, her footsteps muffled by the dust-covered floor. She hesitated, then opened the ledger, coughing as a cloud of dust rose from its yellowed pages. The entries in the ledger were written in a neat, meticulous hand, but the language was archaic, almost foreign in its formality. The dates, however, were unmistakable, stretching back over a century, long before the company had even existed. As she scanned the entries, Lisa's heart began to race. Each page detailed the operations of a business she had never heard of, one that seemed to have occupied this very building long before it was constructed. The final entry, dated the previous year, was signed by a name she recognized: John Carver, the founder of the company she now worked for. Her blood ran cold as she stared at the signature. John Carver had died nearly a decade ago, yet here was his name, written as if he had been in this very room just months before. Suddenly, the light bulb flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through Lisa as she fumbled for her phone, the faint glow of the screen the only source of light. She turned on the flashlight, the narrow beam cutting through the blackness, revealing the door at the top of the stairs standing ajar. The exit seemed much farther away than she remembered, the distance between her and the door stretching impossibly long. Without thinking, she bolted up the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest. The air around her felt thick, as if the darkness itself were pressing down on her, trying to drag her back into the depths. She reached the top of the stairs, gasping for breath, and slammed the door shut behind her. The moment it closed, the oppressive feeling lifted, leaving her trembling and drenched in cold sweat. Lisa stood in the empty corridor, the silence once again wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. The door, now solid and unyielding, refused to open, no matter how hard she pulled on the handle. The next morning, Lisa returned to the corridor, determined to investigate further, but the door was gone. The smooth, unbroken wall mocked her, as if the door had never existed. She tried to convince herself that it had all been a bad dream, a trick of the mind brought on by stress and exhaustion. But deep down, she knew what she had seen and what she had felt. Over the next few weeks, strange occurrences began to plague the building. Employees reported hearing whispers in the hallways, seeing shadows move in the corner of their vision, and feeling sudden drops in temperature that left them shivering. Lisa tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but the growing unease among the staff was impossible to ignore. Productivity began to decline, and several key employees abruptly resigned, unable to explain the overwhelming sense of dread that had taken hold of them. One night, as Lisa was working late, she received a call from security. The guard on the other end sounded panicked, his voice shaking as he described seeing a figure on the security monitors, a man, tall and thin, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, walking down the very corridor where the door had once stood. Lisa raced to the security office, her heart pounding in her chest. The guard replayed the footage, and there, on the grainy screen, was the figure he had described, moving slowly and deliberately down the hallway. The man stopped in front of the wall where the door had been, turned to face the camera and smiled. His eyes were hollow, empty voids that seemed to suck in the light, and his smile was a grotesque mockery of human expression. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving only the empty hallway on the screen. Lisa stared at the monitor, her mind struggling to comprehend what she had just seen. The following day, the building was put on lockdown, with security conducting a thorough sweep of the premises. They found nothing, no signs of forced entry, no evidence of anyone being in the building after hours. But the strange occurrences continued, growing more frequent and more disturbing. Lights flickered uncontrollably, doors slammed shut on their own, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if trying to communicate something just beyond comprehension. Lisa knew she had to find answers. She began researching the history of the land the building was constructed on, digging through old records and archives. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. The land had once been the site of a small, thriving town in the late 1800s, a town that had mysteriously vanished overnight. The only structure that remained was a small, dilapidated building that had once housed a business run by a man named John Carver. The records were sparse, but they alluded to strange rituals and unexplained disappearances associated with Carver's business. The town's residents had whispered of a door that led to another place, a place where time and reality twisted and bent to Carver's will. Lisa realized with horror that the door she had found was the same door from the old records, somehow connected to the dark history of the land, and now, by opening it, she had unleashed something that should have remained buried. Desperate to stop the escalating phenomena, Lisa contacted a paranormal investigator, a man named Marcus Hale, who had a reputation for dealing with the unexplainable. Marcus arrived at the building late one evening, armed with an array of equipment and a no-nonsense attitude. As they walked through the now familiar corridor, Marcus stopped in front of the wall where the door had been. He placed his hand on the smooth surface, his expression grave. "This is not just a door," he said quietly. "It's a threshold, a gateway to somewhere else." He set up his equipment, the devices beeping and whirring as they detected fluctuations in the environment. The air grew heavy, and the temperature dropped sharply, the breath of both Lisa and Marcus visible in the frigid air. Suddenly, the wall began to shimmer, and the outline of the door reappeared, solidifying before their eyes. The door creaked open on its own, revealing the dark staircase once more. Marcus stepped forward, peering into the darkness. "Whatever lies beyond this door is not of our world," he said. "It feeds on fear, on the very essence of those who cross its path." Lisa felt a cold sweat break out on her skin as Marcus continued. "The only way to close it for good is to confront whatever lies on the other side. But be warned, it will not let you go easily." With a deep breath, Lisa knew what she had to do. She couldn't let the darkness continue to spread, to consume the lives of those around her. She stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest, and began her descent into the darkness. Marcus followed closely behind, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the inky blackness. The descent felt endless, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. Finally, they reached the small, windowless room once again, the ledger still lying on the table untouched. But this time, there was something else in the room, a figure standing in the corner, its back to them. The figure was tall and thin, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, its presence radiating an overwhelming sense of malevolence. Lisa's breath caught in her throat as the figure slowly turned to face them. It was the man from the security footage, his hollow eyes and twisted smile sending a wave of terror through her. The man stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate, as if savoring the fear in the room. Marcus raised a small, silver cross, his voice steady as he began to recite an incantation. The man hissed, his smile fading as he recoiled from the cross. The air around them grew thick with the stench of decay, and the walls of the room began to close in, as if the very building was trying to swallow them whole. Lisa felt a surge of resolve as she stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. "You're not welcome here," she said, her words echoing in the confined space. The man paused, his hollow eyes narrowing as he regarded her. For a moment, the air was still, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, with a guttural growl, the man lunged at them, his form shifting and warping into something grotesque, something inhuman. Marcus held the cross steady, continuing to recite the incantation as the creature shrieked in agony. The walls of the room trembled, the light bulb flickering wildly as the creature writhed and twisted, its form disintegrating before their eyes. With a final, ear-piercing scream, the creature exploded into a cloud of black smoke, which was quickly sucked back into the ledger. The door behind them slammed shut, and the oppressive weight in the air lifted, leaving behind only the musty smell of the room. The ledger lay closed on the table, its surface now covered in a thick layer of dust, as if untouched for centuries. Lisa and Marcus exchanged a look of relief, the tension slowly draining from their bodies. "It's over," Marcus said, his voice filled with exhaustion. "The door is sealed, and whatever was inside is gone." They made their way back up the stairs, the air feeling lighter with each step. When they reached the top, the door vanished once more, leaving behind only the smooth wall. In the weeks that followed, the strange occurrences in the building ceased, and the atmosphere slowly returned to normal. Employees who had been on the verge of quitting returned, and productivity began to climb once more. But Lisa knew that the building would never truly be free of the darkness that had once lurked within its walls. The door was gone, but the memories of what had happened would stay with her forever. She continued her work at the company, her dedication unwavering, but she never forgot the lesson she had learned that some doors are meant to remain closed, and some secrets are better left buried. The walls of the room trembled, the light bulb flickering wildly as the creature writhed and twisted, its form disintegrating before their eyes. With a final, ear-piercing scream, the creature exploded into a cloud of black smoke, which was quickly sucked back into the ledger. The door behind them slammed shut, and the oppressive weight in the air lifted, leaving behind only the musty smell of the room. The ledger lay closed on the table, its surface now covered in a thick layer of dust, as if untouched for centuries. Lisa and Marcus exchanged a look of relief, the tension slowly draining from their bodies. "It's over," Marcus said, his voice filled with exhaustion. "The door is sealed, and whatever was inside is gone." They made their way back up the stairs, the air feeling lighter with each step. When they reached the top, the door vanished once more, leaving behind only the smooth wall. In the weeks that followed, the strange occurrences in the building ceased, and the atmosphere slowly returned to normal. Employees who had been on the verge of quitting returned, and productivity began to climb once more. But Lisa knew that the building would never truly be free of the darkness that had once lurked within its walls. The door was gone, but the memories of what had happened would stay with her forever. She continued her work at the company, her dedication unwavering, but she never forgot the lesson she had learned that some doors are meant to remain closed, and some secrets are better left buried.